Okay, friends, bad yogis, stress month. It's a big one, huh? I wanted to share some ideas around this month and stress, maybe that aren't often shared and or considered. Would you be willing to notice what your typical reactive behavior is? How do you typically react in an emotionally charged situation or a stressful situation? What's your reactive behavior? And for most of us, that falls into four categories: flight, fight, freeze, and or facade. So would you be willing to notice if when you're in situations of stress or emotional charge toward the negative, do you go into fight mode? Do you fight back? Do you become extremely defensive? Play that through your head and see how that feels. Does that feel true for you? And notice that behavior. Do you flight? Do you run from the situation physically? Do you leave the situation? Do you leave the situation in your head or in your mind? Do you check out? Notice that behavior. Fight, flight, freeze. Do you become stoic, frozen? You lose a sense of word, expression, check out. Do you completely freeze like a deer in the headlights in stressful situations? And the last one, facade. Do you hide? Do you hide your true feelings? Are you really angry and triggered on the inside, and yet you wear a smile on your face in these situations? Are you extremely triggered and yet you show the face of a Buddha or calmness, etc.? Notice these reactive behaviors. Why? Well, the more that we can notice our typical reactive behaviors, and the more that we can become aware of them and start to notice them, it grows our ability to start to respond in those moments. In the moment of a stressful situation, in the moment of emotional charge, heat, tension, fear, shame, guilt, in those moments, if we start to become aware of our behaviors, we can slowly start to step back, notice our behaviors, and then become a little bit more responsive. And what is that doing? Well, at a mindfulness level, it is slowing us down, helping us become the participant as well as the observer. And a physiological level, what it can do by becoming more responsive is it may reduce our stress hormone response. We'll typically get a less of a burst of adrenaline, noradrenaline, and cortisol, which in the short term is very helpful to survival, but in the long term can cause a lot of chronic issue and chronic degradation in the body, a breakdown of our tissues. I'm sure we're all aware of in some way that inflammatory processes of the body are one of the roots of chronic disease. And one of the roots of inflammation in the body is chronic stress. So, if we start to become more aware of our stressful behaviors, and we can start to manage them in a different way, maybe a more responsive way, to slow ourselves down and become a little bit more soft with self and with other, that will move us more into the parasympathetic system. And that is a system that is the rest and digest system. It helps to cool us off. And I'm not saying that one is good and one is bad. What I am saying is, how do we find balance between the two and start to manage our stress? For me, one of the most powerful ways to do that is through our awareness of self, and where the roots of this reactive behavior comes from. So as you're exploring your reactive behavior, whether it's fight, flight, freeze, or facade, not to criticize self, but to notice self, Start to play with, I wonder where I learned this behavior. I wonder where the roots are. I wonder if I saw this modeled by my parents or my family members. I wonder if it happened at school. Because as you start to grow the awareness of it, you can also start to dive underneath the stories and start to find where the actual roots of the behavior come from and how that behavior has served you for a very long time. And then we get to ask the question, is this behavior still serving us? And or do we want to change it? So these are powerful keys for me, at least, for stress management. Notice that I'm saying stress management. My experience is in this day and age, we live in a stressful environment, at least to our physiology. So how do we start to manage that? One way is through awareness. Another way is through play and playfulness. How many of you are allowing lots of play in your life? Pleasure. Pleasure is a powerful stress management tool. How many of us are allowing pleasure in our life? On a daily basis, play and pleasure, community, tribe, connection, nature, time in nature, eating dinner together, etc. Start to notice and allow more connectivity activities in your life. And start to consider, maybe, what's my normal reactive behavior? And do I want to change it? Or do I want to keep it? That in and of itself is stress relieving by allowing yourself compassion and empathy rather than criticism to change. Start to consider, how do my behaviors serve me? And how do they challenge me? And do I want to change them? All right, my friends. Bad Yogi, Stress Month. See y'all next month.